All right, good evening. It is April 6th, 2024. I haven't been here in a while. My absence, unfortunately, is due to work commitments and so forth. And so I'm back because there's finally news to talk about. There always is news to talk about. And I wanted to do this again before it just became really old and stale here. And so if you're tuning in, welcome for the first time. If you've tuned in before, welcome back. And as the title implies, there are three takeaways from this week's labor report that I think everybody should be aware of. And that if you are looking at the takeaways from this latest labor report, there's a lot to be worried about, legitimately speaking. So, this is the Upwardly Mobile podcast. We are here for episode number 11. We talk about economic news, we talk about job search tips, and we're here to uh, give you our insights in terms of at least what's going on. And so, what is going on? So let's talk about the latest labor report that we kicked off with. The latest labor report showed that we had 303,000 jobs added. Unemployment stayed steady at 3.8%. The labor force participation rate was 62.7. And if you're in the fields of healthcare, government, construction, and leisure and hospitality, you saw gains. Healthcare leading with 72,000 new jobs, government with 71,000, construction with 39,000, and hospitality with 49,000. And wages have increased 4.1% year over year. And so, if you're not in those fields, if you're in information, business services, financial services, as many people tend to be on Albert's list, those numbers stayed flat for the month. And that's actually why what that leads into our takeaways and why you should be worried. So, if you think about it, the government is literally influencing the economy right now. That's my first takeaway. The most jobs that were added, healthcare, government, construction, are government influenced or government adjacent, in the sense that a lot of these different roles rely on government intervention these days, or just have the government involved. And so, just to dive into that a little bit deeper, healthcare, right? We have Medicare, we have individual state exchanges, we have the Affordable Care Act, all of which have been very intertwined by the government over the last 15 years. And so, of course, money is printed literally by the government in this sense, and that healthcare costs continue to go up because there's no accountability on any end. People will pay almost any price for healthcare, or they'll go without. But many will pay the price and they'll bear the burden because that's simply what it is. Government itself doesn't really need an explanation either. And then construction, very much influenced by our interest rates. The fact that construction is going up right now, I think, is a little bit surprising, but also not, because we can talk about the Build Back Better and Inflation Reduction Acts, both of which pumped billions and billions of dollars into our local economies to update much needed infrastructure and so forth. But nonetheless, uh, gone up, right? Because the money is there and now it's being allocated. And that's leading to the wage increases as well. Because if you think about it, if the money coming in is a great deal, then of course you can raise wages because the government is keeping things going. On the other hand, right, if and I would also say that noting a leisure and hospitality increase of 49,000 could be directly impacted by all of these because after all, at the end of the day, your hospital, government, and construction workers need some place to go and eat, drink, and relax. And so that makes sense to have those directly connected. So on the other hand, it is an information, business services, and financial services recession right now. These areas have not added jobs over the last couple of months. And it's not pretty if you're somebody who's a software developer, a product manager, a marketing manager, executive assistant. All of these things are currently not growing. And what that really just means is that the private sector is not doing very well. The numbers from everything else are going to mask it, But when you consider that the private sector is not growing, but the public sector is, it is entirely a government fueled growth right now, which also should just suggest to you that we're in an election year, and I'm not here to peddle any conspiracy theories or talk about anything at that level. But if you really want to think about how the incumbent party in office wants to stay in power, they need to keep the economy growing somehow. And so we're continuing to see that here. And so that's really the first takeaway. The second takeaway is something that you're going to have to dig in a little bit into the numbers to look at. And it's that part-time work is seeing its moment right now. And I don't mean that in a good way. So the numbers really are showing is that over the past 3 months, we've seen a 256,000 person decrease in full-time work while seeing an 838,000 person increase for part-time work. And so this is for 20-hour a week type jobs where you're really working just part of the time, not all the time. And this is not the type of economy that builds generational wealth, the type of wealth where you're able to buy homes and live comfortably. You're literally working for half the week at one job and then shuttling yourself to another job. And we've seen a 217,000 uh, person increase in multiple job holders. So these are people who might have three jobs. And none of this is good for a healthy economy because it shows that there are companies and there are government regulations that are forcing companies into having their employees part-time. So some money can be made some here, but they don't have to give out benefits. And so that should be a great concern. And that's a number that we're going to be watching over the next couple of months. And the third takeaway is that for continued interest rates being high and the government investing the money that it's investing, it's all going to come at an eventual cost, right? So as you know, we've been at the 5.25 to 5.5 federal funds rate number for the last couple of months and really over the last year. And with a $34 trillion debt that the government has taken on, that means that we're paying interest on that as well, that in the really, really, really high range. And so something's going to break soon. And I think we're going to see a little bit of a pattern in that in some of the other topics that we're talking about today. But at the end of the day, something is going to break soon because the government is basically the entity doing all the investing. Your interest rates are high. Credit debt, which we'll talk about in a moment, is really, really high. And, somebody is profiting at the back end of this, the banks are, but somebody is also hurting at the end of this, which is also the American people, which is they're going to either pay back in the form of a higher tax bill, they're going to kick it down the road and mean that more money is going to have to be made up for by the younger generations. And, with a boomer population, the baby boomer population retiring in droves this year, and with not enough children being born on the backside, that's going to create a potential demographic explosion that we may not be able to recover from unless we also figure out how to incentivize family creation and immigration in legal manners. And so, this is a bunch of different things at once. Not really trying to get political here, but it's something to consider as we move into the months ahead. And so, there's something to be seen here. The job numbers, they look really, really good on top. But if you dive deeper into it and you truly understand how everything interlocks together, it's not as beautiful a story as you think it to be. So that's that. Love your takeaway and love your comments to hear what you're thinking there yourself. And yeah, let me know. And so in the meantime, if you are here for the very first time, hit like, leave a comment, subscribe to us. I'd love to know what you're thinking and also watch us for our other career content as well. Moving on to our next topic that we also talk about every single time when we do this is the latest layoffs. So it was quiet for a little while. We didn't have anything going on for a little bit, but they have come back again. And so this week and a couple of prior weeks before, we've been seeing a couple layoffs. Notable this week was Amazon coming out later in the week saying that they had laid off 800 employees, and they had cut employees off of their Amazon Web Services division and their retail division. And so, in the former, with Amazon Web Services, AWS said that they had laid off individuals in their training division focused on learning and development, and they wanted to move to a self-service model. And so that made sense. They're also noted that they are shutting down their division focused on touchless shopping. So forget the direct name of it, but essentially for a long time, you could have gone to Amazon, bought your goods, and then left through the kiosk without actually touching anything, and it would scan your phone to make sure that it was charging the right person. And what we learned over that time was that in this week that we learned that the AI that was tracking the people who had bought anything were actually literally just people who were working on the backside in India. And this is something that we've come to know in the AI space is that even though a lot of this stuff seems automatic, there are a lot of people on the back end who are literally correcting incorrect answers, who are working the operations. And it really brings a lot of skepticism into what's going on with AI. And so that remains to be really fascinating, and we'll see where that all goes in the next couple of months and years as companies tout quote unquote AI to try and get investment, get market interest, and so forth. The second company that we saw that laid off this week was Apple. Apple, as we all recently heard, cut their project focused on self-driving cars and automotive. And so a lot of people were cut from this area and they are being reassigned to AI. Some of them are probably going to leave the company entirely. And this is an interesting one because over the last year and a half, with all the things that are going on, the one company that has not joined the party, that has finally joined the party, is Apple. This is their first layoff. And I noticed, what was really funny about a lot of the headlines was that um, a lot of the media was saying that this was Apple's first round of cuts, with the assumption you could say that they were going to cut even more later on. Now, I don't really know if they will or won't. I know that device sales such as iPhones and iPads and MacBook Pros are depressed abroad, especially in China. So we'll see what ends up happening over on that front. But Apple has finally joined the layoff party. It is understandable why they've joined the layoff party, and we'll see if it expands into anything else. The final layoff that we were looking at this week was Dell, with 13,000 layoffs year over year. They finally announced last week that they had cut 13,000 people going back over the year. And a lot of these layoffs were due to because they were seeing a recession in the personal computing business. And now they're seeing a rebound with folks buying more computers again, and obviously the trend of AI. So they're looking at coming back to profit. And you're probably going to see some of those layoffs come back as boomerangs. And so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Dell laying off 113,000 people, and their employment number and ranks are now down to 120,000 from 133,000 last year. But I would think that given that a lot of these tech companies are refocusing and rearming themselves, they will probably come back and do some more things here. So now on to our third area, we're going to talk about a few topics of interest beyond layoffs. This is just an amalgamation of many different topics over the last couple of weeks that have come up that I haven't really been able to address. But number one, I think this week what we saw was that credit card debt is once again reaching an all-time high, according to CNBC. Interest rates are in the mid 20s to lower 30s. And what they're saying is a lot of people are continuing to spend on credit, right? You have the buy now, pay later movement. We spoke about Klarna a couple of weeks ago in this podcast. And what's going on here is that people are realizing that the pandemic is a you only live once YOLO moment. And so, again, as we keep on speaking, Will this break? And the question really is, if the economy continues to be okay, with everybody going into healthcare, government, construction work, then yes, I think we'll be fine. But I also don't think we're going to be fine because what goes up must come down. And at some point, this debt is going to become so crippling for people that it's going to be hard to know where that goes. And so um, combine that with the 34 trillion that the US government is in debt, and you're looking at a situation that is not pretty at the end of the day. You're looking at a situation where you're going to have more bankruptcies, you're going to have more defaults, and companies are going to go out of business because they're not going to get paid. And that's going to be a big, big deal. Number two, the Powerball hit a $1.13 billion jackpot. It is 7 p.m. now as I do this on Saturday, April the 6th. So maybe somebody has just won. I don't know yet. They're not going to get that much money, that much out of it. The 500 million because the government takes a chunk. So best of luck to everyone who's playing tonight. News piece number three is that Tesla is unveiling a robotaxi in August. And this is an interesting news because as we've watched over the last couple of months, the self-driving car market has been hit hard with allegations of safety issues. And if you've been watching this market over the last 10 years, the self-driving automotive market has been 10 years away for the last 10 years. But if there is one company that's going to change the narrative, it's probably Tesla. With companies like Cruise and Waymo and so forth, Tesla can make good with this, and they already have it with their full self-driving features. And so I would look to August to see maybe the possibility of things changing. Of course, it's always a we will see, but it's going to be exciting to see if something does happen and changes and is different. Now into a little bit of news that's been news for a while, but I wanted to bring up that I thought was interesting to bring over from previous months. And that's the fact that in terms of topic of interests, Dell said that remote and hybrid workers a couple of weeks ago will not get raises or promotions. And there are a lot of people who are shocked by this, a lot of people who are complaining, saying that, we're going to this back into the office and it's discriminatory and so forth. And companies obviously get to make their own policies, but this is something that I've been predicting for a while. So number one, the reason obviously why companies want to do this to make sure that remote and hybrid workers will not get raises or promotions is they want people back in the office. They want to use that as a carrot. So if you're early on in your career and you're working from home, it's probably not a good thing because you don't get that face time and you don't get that exposure, even if you happen to be on Zoom and team meetings all day. And number two, it's really just to say that if you're not visible in any way, even if you're getting a lot of work done, that it's not going to help you move your career forward. So if you are earlier in your career, if you are in the 1 to 5 year range, then I would say you need to be in an office, move to a city, take the hit on that rental payment for a few years, and then see what you can do if you can work remotely. The other thing I wanted to wonder about this is that is this going to mean that people think differently about their careers? Because, COVID really showed for a lot of people that a few things matter in terms of how they see their mental health at work, that they need to be with their families and so forth. And now, layoffs showed that, no matter really what, a lot of companies simply don't care and they want to have control over their employees. Companies got tired of the great resignation and paying employees more. And so that power shifted back to companies with these layoffs. And at the end of the day, you know what? I think a lot of people are going to decide that it doesn't really matter, that they own their career up to a certain point, and given the fluidity of the internet and all these other things going on today, that they're simply going to choose what they want to choose, and it won't really make a difference at the end. And so I think people are still going to decide. People are going to sacrifice career growth, knowing that it is not greener at the top. and they're going to be willing to take those pay cuts. They're going to be willing to take a career that maybe stalls out and know that they can switch jobs and have really, really good job search capabilities, and that's going to allow them to move forward. The other thing that's been going on is beyond Dell is that the Federal Reserve a couple of weeks ago kept interest rates at the same level, and stocks continued to go up as a result of it. Although they did have a little bit of a pullback this week due to um, Fed employee Neil Kashkari saying that interest rates may remain higher longer due to stubborn inflation. And so it's all really, really tough, right? I think at the moment, what we're noticing is that interest rates are going to probably remain high through the middle of the year. And, even though they've been saying that interest rates need to go down, they haven't. And that's been impactful on employment because, as you know, companies continue, especially in the tech industry, to cut their employees and really focus on the fundamentals, right? That should be evidenced by what Amazon and Apple are doing this week. They realized both that despite being companies that are worth billions and billions of dollars, that they can no longer afford to focus on their moonshot projects. And so now they're focusing on projects that are fundamental and core to their business. And the interest rates are really directly causing that impact. All right, so that's really it for this week's podcast. If you're listening still, thank you so much for continuing to support the channel, continuing to follow what we're doing. Um, this week, or really next week, we're going to be hosting one event, which is a mock interview for an HR program manager. So please feel free to stay around for that. In other words, in other news, just come and hang out on Albert's list. The link will be in the description when we get to it. And we look forward to having you again soon to watch us. So thank you so much again for your support. Thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you again here very, very soon. I'm probably going to do another episode of this come next Friday before I head out for a long couple of weeks again. So thank you again, and we'll talk soon. Thanks so much for watching.